Good morning, everybody. I'm personal injury attorney Jeff Adelman with the law offices of Adelman and Adelman, PA, here in Coral Springs, Florida. And today, we're lucky enough to have Eileen Maastricht on the show, who's going to be talking to us about elder law, probate, Medicaid planning, and other things that you might not want to think about, but at the same time, all of us are united in that none of us are getting out of this life alive. So she's going to explain to you why it's so important to take care of these things now, and how through a little bit of effort you can really make a big difference on after you pass, the impact on your family by taking care of these things. So we're going to patch her through, and we're going to be taking questions from you here live on Facebook. Questions that people often ask me, and I would refer to Eileen or a similar practitioner. And that's why I thought that these shows would really be helpful to my clients and friends, as well as hers. So Eileen, are you there?
I'm here. Hi, Jeff.
Good morning. Thanks
Good
so much
morning.
for being here with us. If you could, can you tell the people who are watching where your phone number and where they can contact you?
Sure, of course. So I'm in right on the main drag in Coral Springs on University Drive. My number is 954-340-1551. And of course, my website, www.maastricht-law.com, which we'll spell later, but
Absolutely.
go ahead.
I'll post it for everybody.
Okay.
Because I've had to ask you a couple of times how to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And you're in the Morgan Stanley Plaza. Actually, that's my building.
Yep. I love this building. Great
So,
building.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, and hopefully we'll have a little fun and we'll learn something about an area of law that I do not practice, that I know just enough to get in trouble with. So that's why I'm having you on the air. So before we begin, can you tell us a little bit about your education?
Sure. I grew up in Miami, and I went to Killian High School for any South Florida people watching.
That's where my wife went. That's where Jessica went.
Oh, cool.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah. So then I went to Arizona State. I wanted to stay south of the Mason-Dixon line, so I went way out west. I majored in finance. Then I wanted to go to law school, and I knew I wanted to go north, and I applied in DC, New York, and Chicago, and I got a great scholarship to DePaul University in Chicago. So that was the end of that decision, and that's where I went. So I actually got an MBA and a law degree from DePaul.
And the founder of my firm, my dad, Larry Edelman, also went to DePaul.
Oh, Chicago. Go Chicago. Love it there.
I did my research. All right. So in any event, so you went to law school at DePaul, but you came back here. Now, you're a nurse, correct?
Yes, I am. I am an RN. Yes.
So tell me about how that happened. You're a lawyer now. You have been trained as a nurse.
Right.
You obviously have gone many paths.
Yes, most people there actually are quite a few nurse attorneys, but most people do nursing first and then become attorneys. I kind of did it reverse. I was a lawyer, and then after about 10 years into law, maybe a little bit more, I just had wanted to do nursing. My mom was a nurse for 30 years, and it's something that I'd always wanted to do and was interested in. I settled a big case, and I just thought, this is the time to do it. And they were offering this 1-year accelerated program to do it. So I did it in a year, and then I ended up working as a nurse in an emergency room for a couple of years. And then also in a rehabilitation hospital, a local one, in the admissions office. And interestingly, how life often comes full circle. In my elder law practice, so much of what I do involves, the health condition and prognosis of our elderly friends, and my nursing degree comes in so handy. And plus my knowledge of the flow of money through rehab and hospitals, who Medicare, Medicaid, who pays what, insurance, Medicare Advantage plans, et cetera. And I got firsthand experience with that for over 5 years working in a rehabilitation hospital. So it's really been ironically, it's all dovetailed very nicely.
Did your experience working in nursing influence you in terms of going into your elder law practice?
Actually, it did in a way. It was sort of I mean, estate planning and probate have always been something that I've done, and elder law is a logical add-on to those practices. Especially when, our clients, I want my clients to be my clients for life, and as they go through different stages, I want to be the one to be able to help them. Um, and a lot of my clients were asking about elder law services, Medicaid planning, and I thought, and ironically, it just worked out so well. I'm like, this is absolutely, I should be adding this on as a practice area, because nursing goes hand in hand with it, and it's really been great. I actually enjoy it very much. It's actually one of my favorite practice areas.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned something in that last answer about Medicaid planning.
Yes.
Can you tell everybody a little bit what you mean by that, Medicaid planning?
So Medicaid planning is planning for prevention of financial devastation when a person needs long-term care. And when I say long-term care, I mean either care in a nursing home, assisted living facility, or in-home care where you have aides and attendants coming in all the time. As people may or may not know, this is very, very expensive. The average cost of nursing home care in Florida is $9,171 a month. And that's just the average. We're here in South Florida, and it's a lot more than that in a lot of places here in Broward and Palm Beach County. And obviously, as you can imagine, if you're in a nursing home, you can burn through your money very quickly at $91.71 a month. So Medicaid has a whole set of provisions that allows you to qualify for Medicaid to help pay for your nursing home care, and you simultaneously preserve your assets so that you don't end up destitute. Because Medicaid, while it covers your care in the nursing home, it doesn't pay for everything. You need clothes, right, your hair done, your nails, just the comforts of living. If you spend your money to the point where you have zero, then you have nothing. I mean, no dignity, you're destitute. It's awful. And Medicaid, they understand that, and they don't want people to end up like that. So they have these rules, and they say, if you do this, this, and this, you're fine. Don't do this and this, but we're not going to do it for you. But if you hire an attorney and you do these things, then you're fine and you'll qualify. And at the same token, you'll have some money to spend on the things that Medicaid doesn't pay for. So it really can be a huge benefit for families.
Who would be the type of client that would need to come to you for Medicaid planning?
A lot of times it's, I get a lot of referrals from nursing homes themselves, because they have a whole social work department that is helping the families through how are we going to pay for this? And working at a rehabilitation hospital, I saw this all the time. All of a sudden, a parent breaks a hip, and now they go into the hospital, then they go into rehab, and all of a sudden there are complications, and now pretty soon they need, long-term nursing care, and everybody is like, how are we going to pay for this? So the social worker will refer them to me, and to help them qualify for Medicaid, preserve some assets for the family, or particularly the spouse, so that the spouse is not destitute. Or a lot of times I get calls. I just got off a call about 5 minutes ago, actually, with the children, a child of elderly parents who now her mom and dad, her mom in particular, has dementia, and can't be alone, and needs help, and needs to do some planning, because she's only 75 years old, the mom, and could live a very long life, but cannot be left alone. And this is a major crisis for families. And so I'm going to help them kind of restructure things a little bit so that they'll qualify for Medicaid. We'll get her on. We'll actually do the application and apply for Medicaid, and that has many nuances, many complexities to it that I don't advise trying to do it alone. And then they'll be able to have some assets, so that the idea is that they don't outlive their money.
Well, it sounds like if it costs over $9,200 for those type of services, hiring an attorney would be a fraction of that cost.
Exactly. We can save, they can save, by hiring an attorney, they can save hundreds of thousands of dollars that they otherwise would spend in the care of their loved one, and have that money for the extra money for their loved one and their family. Yes.
Now, another part of your practice, obviously, is wills, trusts, and estates. And I think people have a basic idea of what a will is, but
Yes.
can you explain for me the difference between, let's say, a will and a trust, and why somebody might elect for a trust over a will, a simple will?
Sure, sure. So a will is a document that basically tells the court how you want your assets to be distributed when you pass away. It has to go through probate, which means that a judge has to oversee and stamp everything. It's very expensive. You have to have an attorney, and it can take a really long time. There's a creditor period. The personal representative gets fees. The attorney gets automatic fees. Sometimes there's a bond that needs to be posted. It's basically very frustrating for families. I have one right now that's been going on for a couple years. It can really just take a long time for people to actually get their money, and be very expensive because they've got to pay the attorney's fees and all the costs that are involved in the probate process. A trust, on the other hand, well, first of all, there are many types of trusts, but the trust that we're talking about in this particular situation is called an inter vivos trust, otherwise known as a living trust or a revocable trust or a revocable living trust. All of those things mean the same thing. But basically, it's a will substitute. And what it does is it allows you to pass your assets on to who you want in the way that you want without court involvement, without probate. And it can save a ton of money, a ton of time, and a ton of family frustration. I have my own assets set up in a trust for my daughter. Absolutely. I would never want her to put her through the probate process.
Yes. Because the probate process is expensive, so you might be saving money going and doing a will,
right.
But then your heirs are going to have to pay for the probate, and
right.
This gives you a little more control with a trust, right?
Right, right. And every time I go through probate with families, they're always like, I wish my mom or my dad would have set up a trust. I wish they would have done this. Oh my gosh, it would have been so much smoother. Sorry about that. My sister.
That's okay. We're conducting business,
yeah.
As well as putting on a show.
Yeah.
Now, when you do a revocable trust, a will, are there other documents that you recommend people sign as well?
Yes.
I mean, I'm talking about specifically, people have heard the expression power of attorney, living will, those type of things.
Yes. So an estate plan, when attorneys talk about a estate plan, what they're talking about is the whole set of the comprehensive set of documents that you have to have, really all of us has to have. Of course, the will or the trust, but equally, if not actually more important, is a really good power of attorney. Without a power of attorney, if your loved one or you end up incapacitated, then you will have to have a court guardianship established in order for somebody to be able to handle your financial matters, which is worse than probate. It's sort of one of my passions in life, is to help people avoid court guardianships and probate. I used to do guardianship work as an attorney, and it's even more intrusive than probate. People are parading through your house, your rights are taken away, your assets are taken away. It's very expensive. You have to have an attorney. Annual accountings have to be filed every year. It's awful. So you need a really good power of attorney, not a general power of attorney, not a 3-page power of attorney. It's got to be really good and really broad to not only allow them to handle every single financial matter for you, but also to do Medicaid planning for you if needed, and to do public benefits planning. It's really important. And I just want to add that I have a whole seminar series on powers of attorney, but institutions, banks, and these other institutions that have to accept powers of attorney have gotten stricter and stricter about what they're going to accept. And they want that document to say specifically what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. You can't just say, I give my power of attorney, my agent, the attorney, to do anything and everything. You can't say that. In the old days, they used to say that, but you can't anymore. So really important to have those documents. But also the designation of healthcare surrogate, for somebody to make healthcare decisions for you. The living will, which is what we call the pull the plug document, which is you tell the world whether you want to be kept on artificial life support or not.
That's the one that seems to get a lot of media attention.
Yes, yes. And there's a lot of, it's a dumb name, living will, because people confuse it with a trust or a will, or what exactly does it mean? But it's called the living will. I guess it's called your will to live. I guess that's why it's called that. And then
You call it
also,
the pull the plug document?
yeah, I just call it the pull the plug document because that's what it is. You tell the
it
world
really
whether
is.
yeah.
Getting back to the power of attorney,
Mm-hmm.
I know in my practice, when I've had some situations for personal injury
Mm-hmm.
involving elderly people,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the power of attorneys come in and actually had to sign the documents for their mother or father in order to pursue a claim for negligence or anything like that.
Yes.
So again, it's one of those things where you hope that you don't need it. But you know, at some point you're going to be thankful that you do, because there's going to be some instance where you may need that.
Exactly. And I just ran out to, it's the number one priority. If I get whenever I have a new elder law case, the number one priority is to get those new updated powers of attorney signed. Yesterday I just ran out to a nursing home because you know, and you want to obviously get the person when they have capacity still, because people can lose capacity pretty fast. So I was out there yesterday afternoon in a nursing home. We got it signed, but it's like a huge breath of you know, sigh of relief when you get that signed. Anyway, go ahead.
Absolutely. Getting back to getting things signed, you're a notary, correct, Eileen?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. And do you make house and hospital visits?
I do. I go make house calls, hospitals, nursing homes. Yes.
Why is that important?
Because people need to get these things done and need to get their documents signed and done. And a lot of people are not mobile. They really aren't. And we all take it for granted how we can just run around town and run around the city. But a lot of people just are not. This gentleman yesterday at a nursing home, there is no way he could get into a car. He has some physical ailments with trouble walking, and you know, he's got a little bit of confusion. And so it's just not possible. So I do house calls and nursing home calls and actually go to hospitals all the time. Or some people, unfortunately, get a terminal diagnosis and, you know, they've never done their estate planning, and it's called a deathbed will, but I do those. Yes.
Well, I mean, for example, they write on a piece of hotel stationery how they want their assets to be distributed. Mm-hmm. They sign it and let's just say the receptionist up front signs it too. Is that good enough?
It can be. It depends. It needs to be witnessed by two people in Florida, and it needs to be notarized.
That's what I'm getting at. I mean, if you don't have the document notarized, isn't there a good chance it can be challenged?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. No, it has to be notarized with two witnesses. Yes, absolutely. You can do your own. I mean, I've had people, I have a probate right now where somebody did her own will. She had it notarized with two witnesses, but then there's something else in Florida called a self-proving affidavit, which is an additional level of attestation and notarizing. And most people, if they do their own will, even if they get the two witnesses in the notary, they don't do that. And that just makes the probate process a little more difficult and makes it less straightforward and less sure that will is going to be accepted. So yeah, you got to have notary witnesses, the whole bit.
Eileen, can you tell everybody a little bit? I mean, the big question is obviously, how do you get paid?
Okay.
You know, that's what most calls when I speak to somebody, well, how much do they charge, or how do they get paid? So, you know, if you don't have a set, you know, price, but just if you could let them know how it works in terms of pricing.
Right, sure. So with estate planning, which is really, you know, that's kind of a big term, but really that involves your wills, your trusts, your incapacity planning, like your durable powers of attorney and healthcare surrogate. We have package prices. So the whole we have a will package, we have a trust package. And the will package ranges anywhere from $550 up to $1,900, depending upon how you're leaving your assets to people. If you're going to leave your assets in further sub-trust to, like if you have minor children or if you have kids that you just want the money to be protected, then that's what dictates whether it's going to be kind of higher. But it can be as low as $550 for a single person. For couples, it starts at $950. For trust packages, they start at $1,900 for a single person, and they start at $2,500 for a couple. And then they can go up from there a little bit, depending again on how assets are going to be left to loved ones. I also do a la carte documents, of course, because some people, all they need is a power of attorney. All they need is a living will or something like that. And that depends. My power of attorney is $650. And then I charge a little bit for a house call, depending on how far I'm going.
How does it work? How does it work in terms of like an initial consultation with you? Like somebody calls you and says, I want to come in and talk to you about what I need.
Okay, so I actually offer a complimentary 45-minute consultation. A lot of attorneys in my field don't. They charge.
That's true. Usually it's like a charge you like $250 or something like that. So you offer a free 45-minute consultation?
I do for the first consultation. I do because I kind of think, it's if you're going to be when you hire an attorney to do estate planning or in Medicaid planning, it's a journey that you're going on together. And I think you need to be comfortable with each other. So I understand the desire to be able to meet me, the attorney, to see if we're a good fit for each other. And also for me to kind of review their situation a little bit to see if I can even help them. So I'm okay with that, 45 minutes for an initial consultation. And then
that's if they meet you in the office, obviously.
Yeah. And then a phone. Yeah, right. If I travel, there's a little bit of a charge. Or I do phone consultations, for 15 minutes, half an hour, no cost.
Okay, well, that's very good to know. Now, you've gone over the pricing. Let's talk about when people don't do estate planning and they pass away and they don't have a will. What happens when somebody doesn't have a will and they die?
Well, it can be a big mess. It depends what their assets are, but it can be a huge mess. So usually what happens is, so let me, there are a couple sort of low cost ways to do estate planning. And sometimes it's perfectly fine to, for example, make a pay on death designation on your bank accounts or on your, all the time on your insurance policies and your retirement accounts, you have to name a beneficiary. Sometimes it's perfectly fine to just name a person or two people.
Those don't pass through the will or trust or anything like that.
Those will go directly to the people that you name. However, what we'll talk about when you meet with me for estate planning is that whether that's really the best idea. If you have a minor child, for example, do not make them the beneficiary of your life insurance policy or your retirement account. Minors cannot inherit money. What will happen is that a court guardian, so even though you have a designated beneficiary, you are going to have a probate proceeding to deal with that. And there's going to have to be a court guardianship established that's going to have to, oversee that. It's going to be a minor guardianship that's going to have to oversee that money until that child is 18. And then when that child is 18, they get every cent of it, no questions asked. So if you have a decent sized life insurance policy, even not decent size, any amount of money to an 18-year-old is like, their eyes get really big and start spinning. And the first thing they do is go and buy a completely ridiculous car or the money's gone in a year.
What car are they going to get?
Right. So you need to, what we'll do is we'll make a trust the beneficiary, or sub-trust, we call it. It's a sub-trust for the child. Like I have for my daughter, she has a sub-trust that will arise once I pass away, and that money will go into her sub-trust, and then there will be a trustee that will handle that and manage that money so that it's given for her maintenance, education, support, and needs, and so that she doesn't get a giant lump sum of money when she's, at too young of an age to handle it. So it can be a big mess. But anyway, you can have those beneficiary designations. They'll go straight towards there. But if there's an asset that's only in the name of the decedent, it has to go through probate. And that's when I get the call when somebody says, I want to get this house transferred to my name. How do I do it? I need this account. How do I get this money? What do I do? And so then we have to start the whole probate process. Yes.
And the probate process, it's going to cost a little bit more than that $1,900 you mentioned for an initial trust, right?
Way more. Yeah, a lot more. Because there are always complications. People come to you and say, oh, yeah, they didn't have any creditors. And, oh, this will be super simple. That's the question. That's the phone call I get all the time. I just have this simple estate, this simple thing, and it's never, ever that simple. People come out of the woodwork, the creditors and family members and heirs that have never been heard of.
They find you. They sniff the money.
If there are two nickels to scratch together, people find you. So then it becomes way more complicated and more expensive. Yes.
We had a couple of questions on the live feed. Something I neglected to ask you, Frank Hara asked, are there any provisions for attorney's fees? And I think he's referring specifically to when you talk about the Medicaid planning, I guess how you're paid for those services.
So for Medicaid planning, when I'm helping an elderly person qualify for and apply for Medicaid, that is a flat fee that I charge, and it depends totally on what we're doing. It can be, you know, 2 things that we're doing, or it can be 10 things that we're doing. And the range for that, and it could be for a single person or a married couple, so the range is really anywhere from 2,500 up to about 10,500, depending upon what we're doing. But if you think about that, that's less, that's barely, you know, if the fee, let's say hypothetically is $7,500, that's less than 1 month in a nursing home. And if I'm saving that money, saving that family from having to pay out of pocket for the nursing home, I've now saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And for, you know, the price of, in that particular case was $7,500. So it's a huge, it can be a huge benefit for the family. Yeah. Like 25 to 10,500 usually.
Let me ask you this, and again, I appreciate you generously giving me your time so that that people can get some valuable information that they may not have thought about before, wanted to think about before. So I'm going to end it like this. Somebody like me, I'm going to be 43 this year. I have 2 young children. I'm married. At the very least, what is the type of estate planning? If I were to just walk in the door, at a bare minimum, what would I need?
At a bare minimum, you and your wife would need wills, plus durable power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, living wills. And in your wills, you would have to have, I would suggest to you that you have subtrusts for your kids, so that when you pass away, assets will go into those subtrusts for your kids, so that guardianships will not be necessary. And so that the money will be managed and handled over whatever term you decide for your kids, whether it's for the rest of their lives, like I have for my daughter. Well, and she can even be, at a certain age, she can even be her own trustee, which is really important. Or you can do ages and stages. They get a third at 25, a third at 30, a third at 35. But in the meantime, also, they can get distributions for their needs. But that's what you would need at a bare minimum. It will go through probate to get there and to get those subtrusts set up. But if you want to spend, you know, not spend the money for trust planning for a revocable living trust at that time, then at a bare minimum, that's what you would need. Yes.
And again, I'm a lawyer, so I always have an additional question after I say it's the last question.
No problem.
How much time does it take to get something like this done? Because I could imagine a lot of people, they're like, oh, they don't want to deal with it to begin with, and they don't want it to last for like 2 months trying to get all these estate documents together. How much time is the turnaround time getting the documents all done?
All done from first meeting to end, last meeting is usually, it can be anywhere from 4 weeks to 8 weeks. And that really depends a lot on the client. You know, we'll have our my process is 3 meetings. We have our initial meeting where we sort of learn, we meet, we get acquainted. I learn about your situation. You get comfortable with me. We engage, we design your plan. Then at the next meeting, so in between the first and the second meeting, we draft your plan, we email to you confirmation, a beautiful color chart, which is something that I do that most firms don't do, that lays out your whole plan. Once I know that all names are spelled correctly, this is exactly how you want things to go, we meet for our signing meeting. Our signing meeting, however, is scheduled at our initial meeting. Before we leave, we set that meeting so we all have something to work towards. And we set it about 2 weeks out, 2 to 3 weeks out. And then we have our signing meeting, and then after that, we fund, we do funding of the trusts, we do some more work in that regard, and then we scan all the documents, we put them into a beautiful binder, we put them on flash drives, and then we meet last time, which is usually about 2 or 3 weeks after that, where you pick up your binder, we go over everything again, and I do what's called a greatest asset interview, which I interview the client and the spouse, and about their wisdom, their experiences, their life. I send them a set of like 8 questions beforehand, and they can pick which set they want me to ask. I audio record it, and then I send them a flash drive with that on it. So it's a really nice thing for couples or for individuals who are, really focused and want to get this done. It can be anywhere from really 4 weeks is kind of a fast track. 6 weeks it can all be done, but some people delay it a little bit. I really don't like it to go longer than 8 weeks, but once in a while it does, but because life kind of intervenes. But in general, within a couple months it's done.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time. Can you tell everybody again how they can reach you?
Sure. My number is 954-340-1551, and my website address is www.maastricht-law.com. That's MAAS as in Sam, T as in Tom, RICHT-law.com.
Eileen, thank you so much for your time, and thank you to all of you who have tuned in. We're going to be doing questions with lawyers again on February 20th, and coincidentally, we're going to be talking about guardianship law, Eileen.
Great.
I'm going to have Michelle Reichler on with me from Coral Springs, who I actually have known for many, many years. She's a very close friend of Jessica's, and we actually went to law school together. So
great.
I'm really looking forward to having Michelle on the air. And again, thank you so much for your time, and thank you to all of you for listening to us, and I hope it was enlightening. Feel free to reach out to me or Eileen anytime. Again, my name is Jeff Edelman. I'm with the law offices of Edelman and Edelman, and my number is 954-341-2777. That's 954-341-2777. Thank you. I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks, Jeff. See you soon.
Thanks, Eileen.
Bye.